And good morning, everybody. Welcome. Hot Takes Goodman and Hurdle. Bruce is out stalking Bruce Springsteen all over the world, and filling in is Denver Post columnist Sean Keeler. Good morning, Sean. How are you?
Good morning, Eric. How are you? Thank you for having me.
It's a big day. The Rockies are coming off right now a 4-game winning streak, 4 games in a row. That's a good thing. And also, if the reports are true, Shedeur Sanders is going full speed on and off the field.
You know, I can't say I didn't laugh when both those stories happened on Wednesday, but he's finding out that life outside of Boulder and outside of Texas is a different deal.
The reason why, I don't know, maybe my eyebrow raised a little bit is this would not happen with Travis Hunter. That's why. To me, those guys are going to forever be linked. I would like to say in a good way, but you just wouldn't expect this out of Travis.
Well, Travis is a different cat on so many levels. And one of the joys of him is that he's genuine in all facets, and that he is a homebody. Good, whatever you think of that's never been his bag, to be out doing stuff outside of home, outside of the computer. If anything, the computer's his greatest strength and maybe greatest weakness when his eyes go, as we know from staring at it for 50 years. But Shedeur's a different deal, and I have not read the report specifically, but I would be fascinated what that conversation with an officer was like, because, and we've talked about this privately, and I don't wish ill upon him or his family, to be fair, but there is a point in all our lives, and I know you've probably talked about this with Bruce at length, where you simply can't say, "Do you know who my dad is?" anymore. And this is
that part of the report.
No, like I said, I haven't read the reports, but we've talked about this with him going to the next level, that was always in the back of the mind of NFL GMs and scouts as a concern. And this is not a grade A big deal where Shedeur is concerned. No. But when your margin for error as a 5th-round draft pick is so small, you can't let this be the narrative when you're in a new place.
I agree. With that, I want to tell you about Roller Auction, the leader in Colorado auctions for over 45 years. On Wednesday, June 25th, the city of Aurora is having an auction for impounded vehicles featuring trucks, cars, SUVs, 4x4s, trailers, and more. Online bidding has started at rollerauction.com. And don't forget to go to rollerauction.com to learn about upcoming auctions. Get what you want at the price you want today at Roller Auction. Time now for the lead.
The lead is presented by Sasquatch Casino, a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
Com's Gennaro Felici predicted his all-rookie team for this upcoming season. 3 Broncos are on the list. And remember, they only had 1 first-round draft pick. Jahdae Barron is on the list, RJ Harvey, and Jeremy Crawshaw. On the surface, Sean, if all 3 of these guys make the all-rookie team, are the Broncos more than just a playoff contender? Are they now suddenly Super Bowl contenders, barring injuries?
If all 3 of those guys are on that team, absolutely, because you've gone from a 10-win team and a kind of a cute franchise comeback story to division champions. If all 3 of those guys are there, how are you not winning 11, 12 games? How are you not sort of closing that circle and catching up with the Chiefs? So I do think that's a little ambitious. I do think that's a bit of a best case scenario, but it's entirely plausible on the evidence of what we have: 2 Peyton drafts. Yep. And how many contributors particularly have come out of this last one that we talked about benefits of the doubt. I'm going to give that scouting operation the absolute benefit of the doubt, unless this class really hits a wall. And I don't think they will. I don't know that I'd go where this story went, but if you get to your question, if you get all 3, you're a division champion, and that means you'll get a playoff home game, and that means you're absolutely a Super Bowl contender.
Jahdae Barron would not surprise me at all. Crawshaw would not surprise me at all. He's the only punter taken in the draft, and we have watched him at practice. And this guy, specifically a mile high, punts it a mile high. This Aussie knows what he's doing. Maybe I am going back to the Todd Sauerbrunn era where we really saw a punter and how he can flip the field. And we'll talk more about Crawshaw a little bit later on. But I want to get into RJ Harvey and start with him because honestly, and I'll ask you, when you look at all three of those rookies, when you look at the entire rookie class, isn't RJ Harvey the most important guy of that class that we desperately need to thrive?
Without a doubt, because he was the pick that addressed the most immediate area of need. Jahdae Barron was the BPD was the BPA, sorry, best player available. He was going to make any defense and this one as well better just by showing up. And we'll get into him a little bit as well, but he wasn't a need. He was a want, and a bit of a greedy want. It was sort of waking up and going, that guy's still there? Right. Yeah, we'll do that. And it was a risk given that you have more glaring concerns at tailback and tight end for immediate contributors. As we've seen in the body of work of this spring, they've addressed both those things. But yeah, I think the pivot point for this rookie class, and one of the pivot points for this season, frankly, is RJ Harvey, because they need more reliable and certainly more certain contributions out of that spot and that rotation to balance what they've got. Because if you get that going in the way that it could, I don't know with RJ Harvey that it will, hence J.K. Dobbins is here. Then you got a stew going. You got something that's really cooking offensively.
I want to read you what Felici wrote about Harvey, and I laughed at the opening sentence because I think all of us who have been out at camp have not only seen it, but have commented on it. But I'm going to read you just a snippet of what he wrote. Harvey weighs 105 pounds. Excuse me, 110 pounds. Let me make sure I get that right. Harvey weighs 205 pounds, but his thighs appear to account for at least 100 of them. This helps explain the 5'8" back's exceptional lateral agility and burst, traits that have many comparing him to last year's top rookie rusher, Bucky Irving. Running behind a premium offensive line for an elite play caller, Harvey has the opportunity to be a fantasy league winner in year one. Two-part question. Are you as confident about Harvey as Felici? And if Harvey performs like Irving, let me tell you Irving's numbers. Over 1,100 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, caught 47 passes for nearly 400 yards. If this guy does that, I'm pretty confident in saying the Broncos, barring injuries to Nix and throughout the roster, will win their division.
I would agree. And for the reasons you underline and the reasons we talked about before, because now Bo Nix is able to kind of keep maturing and keep growing up as little room as he's got to go there. Given as impressively as he started, I think you've got a crutch. But I'm not convinced that we're going to get there. I'm not as confident as the gentleman who put the piece, and I'm not sure that Sean Payton and George Payton are either. Because again, why else would J.K. Dobbins be here?
I can give you an answer to that.
Okay,
they needed a voice in the room. Mm-hmm. You can't put in there a bunch of young guys. You need a voice. I believe that's important. But honestly, you don't. RJ Harvey is a more talented running back than J.K. Dobbins, even when J.K. Dobbins is fully healthy. That's your answer. Period. J.K. Dobbins is a veteran guy, which is ironic. Off the top, and tell me if you know this answer. Do you know how many years J.K. Dobbins has been playing in the NFL?
At least
off the top of your head, give me a quick answer.
4 to 5.
4. Yeah. And he's a veteran voice, and he's missed a whole bunch of games.
Right.
But it feels like the guy's been around since the 1970s. Doesn't it?
What an anti-Buckeye response right there.
But doesn't it feel like
he's got a lot of tread. He is there also to as more of insurance on third down. I mean, let's be real about what that is too. But you're not going to convince me that he isn't something of an indictment of the Harvey pick. But saying we've got to have some insurance there. I think it's saying, because if you have if you have a lockdown guy there, are you giving a guy with that much tread and Dobbins a contract? Are you shopping that hard?
It's an indictment on who they have behind Harvey.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, do you feel confident giving Audric Estime 200 carries this year, McLaughlin 200 carries this upcoming season?
No,
McLaughlin, we know who he is.
Yeah.
Okay. He's got a great burst of speed, not great vision, and is not a reliable blocker. Audric Estime, here, this is why it's an indictment on Audric Estime. Tell me what Audric Estime did in the playoffs last year against Buffalo.
Yeah, he was inactive.
That's why it's an indictment. I don't care what Sean says. We want to make sure he gets his touches. I know you want to, but the question is, are you? I think they are sold on RJ Harvey. I know they wanted Barron. I get that because he was there. He was the best player available. Makes perfect sense to me. But at the end of the day, listen, if they didn't feel confident in Harvey, they would have gone with Trayvon Henderson. I don't know if they would have gone with Omari Hampton, but they would have gone with Trayvon Henderson. They knew it was a deep running back class. They liked RJ Harvey enough to say, okay, Henderson and maybe Omari Hampton might be an 8. We look at Harvey as a 7.5.
Yeah.
So we can take Barron. It's an indictment on who's behind Harvey. And you know what the funny thing is? Even this guy, who I'll be honest, I don't know his work that well. There are a lot of people that are high on RJ Harvey. A lot of people.
There are, and I might be biased in the sense that when I saw him up close against CU, he was a non-factor. He was good.
Well, that CU defense was suffocating all season.
And then when they got behind, he was, they were built to play from ahead. To be fair, that was a defense built to play from ahead. They got ahead in that game, and once they did, you weren't going to run the ball. You weren't going to run the ball with him anymore. So understanding that in Orlando, and what I saw with my own 2 eyes, I came away less impressed with RJ Harvey as a collegian relative to what other folks did. But you also have to have a guy, and this is where I think the Dobbins thing is smart. And to your point about the people behind RJ Harvey, is you have to have a back that can also enhance and protect your greatest offensive asset, and that is Bo Nix.
And that I think is your most salient point.
Yep.
Because we don't know how good of a blocker RJ Harvey is.
No.
And if it turns out he's not very good, then the Broncos have a problem, and they will have to play Dobbins until, I'm sorry, he eventually gets hurt.
Yeah, inevitably. But that's smart, sound organizational thinking, and nothing that anybody would disagree with, because wherever this goes, it's going to go as Bo goes, regardless. And you want the back with the most snaps that pairs the best with him going forward. And now you have a good 1A, and you would call it 2. I would call it 1B. That's a lot better than a 1 and then a 3 and then a 4.
What you don't want to have happen is when RJ Harvey comes in the game, they're running it. That's what happened with Jaleel McLaughlin.
Yep.
When he comes in the game, there's an 80 to 90% chance he is going to be touching the ball. And you pretty much know they're not going to be throwing it.
Yeah.
So for RJ Harvey, he needs to put himself in a position where you keep defenses guessing. That, to me, is going to be the hardest thing for him to adjust to, because I can't imagine he needed to do a lot of blocking where he played college ball.
No. And with what they ran with Gus Malzahn, we know with Gus Malzahn guys, those are featured guys. His hands and his blocking, as it's true with any young NFL tailback, are going to determine his snap count. And that ultimately is why RJ Harvey is there, because Bo Nix, not the tailbacks, are the most important part of what this is going forward, even though if Harvey is as good as this article says that he could be, if he has enough of those Bucky traits, you got something going, and you're going to be dangerous on a couple levels.
I'm going to ask you to work with me on the tease here as we go to break. I want a quick one-sentence answer, okay? Quick one-sentence answer. We are less than a week from the NBA draft, right? Who is the Nuggets full-time GM? One-sentence answer.
That right now. Or
they don't. I'll do it for you. They don't have one.
They don't.
That's next. And you skewered the Nuggets about this in your latest column. We'll talk about it next. Everyone has their favorite barbecue spot. Mine, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew. My favorites, slowly smoked ribs, smoked corned beef Reuben, smoked meatloaf with a portobello balsamic cream sauce. Don't forget about Smokin' Dave's 16-hour smoked brisket and pork with one of their 4 homemade barbecue sauces. Great sides, you bet. Barbecue beans made with pork and brisket and their southern corn bake. Man, you got to try it. Plus, they have amazing non-barbecue entrees on the menu. Go where I go, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew in North Denver.
Ever wondered where city and county fleet vehicles go when they retire? Now's your chance to find out and score big. Imagine driving away with a great deal on a reliable vehicle. For over 45 years, Roller Auction has been the trusted source for government fleet vehicles and equipment. Trucks, SUVs, sedans, and more, all selling to the highest bidder. Don't miss out. Visit roller.bid/hot takes to get auction updates today. Your next vehicle could be just a click away.
Spice up your next night out at Nola Jane and Lodo. Authentic Cajun cuisine like andouille sausage gumbo with dirty rice, crawfish etouffee, as well as 6 different po' boys like soft-shell crab and shrimp. Come in before or after a game at Ball Arena. Host a party or party on their rooftop deck overlooking Market Street during happy hour from 11 a.m. to 5. Plus, Nola Jane caters, delivers, and the kitchen is open late night. Make Nola Jane your new favorite spot to eat, drink, and party like it's Mardi Gras.
Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk have another incredible promotion. They'll be giving away a pair of Spider Cruisers or over $15,000 in cash the weekend of July 18th, just in time for the Sturgis Bike Rally in South Dakota. That's right, your choice, cruisers or $15,000 in cash. Get finalist entries every 45 minutes from 10 a.m. to midnight during their daily cash drawing with a locked-up jackpot of $100 or more. Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos, loose slots, great promotions, great food, and a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
Ferguson's Heating and Cooling is the best in Denver, and their customers agree. Ferguson's has 165 5-star Google reviews, and here's one from Betsy. Highly professional, prompt, and honest. I switched to Ferguson's when I became aware my former company was trying to sell me a whole new system I didn't need. Ferguson's is an honest, working, family-owned business that'll give you a fair price, the highest quality parts and equipment, and they always show up on time. You can trust the Ferguson family like you trust your own family. Go to fergusonsheatingandcooling.com.
Everyone has their favorite sports bar. Mine, the Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch in the DTC. Both locations are everything a sports bar should be. An upscale menu with 12 different burgers, outstanding wings, and my favorite, the Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. They've got every game on the NFL Sunday Ticket, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, NBA League Pass, plus soccer, rugby, and UFC. Sportsbook is a hangout bar or great for private parties. The Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch, the DTC, and coming soon to Parker. They are the sports bar. And welcome back. Hot Takes, Goodman and Hurdle. Bruce is stalking Bruce Springsteen all over the world. So Sean Keeler, my favorite White Sox fan, is filling in. Of course, of course.
You don't know that many. They won't come out and admit it anymore.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I want to ask you really quick.
Yeah.
Do you want to see the Rockies break the White Sox modern day record?
Yes, but I don't think they will. I don't think
Do
they
you
will.
want them to do it because it's a great story, or because you're a White Sox fan?
Both.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
That I'm human. But I'm torn because I know you and I profoundly disagree on Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yeah, those 6 NBA titles are a real black
I know
mark on his resume.
we won't get into that, and that's fine.
And
but
that World Series championship on his resume is a real black mark.
I was there too. That's fine. But I'd contend that the last 20 years after that, 2005 was a long time ago and many pounds ago for me, Eric. So,
and I agree with you on this point. Jerry Reinsdorf has one great quality that is his downfall, which is the same downfall as Dick Monfort, just too loyal.
Yeah, very much.
And he was way too loyal to Ken Harrelson, better known as Hawk, a guy who I worked with, who might be one of the worst people I've ever worked with in my life. But I'm including you in that.
Yeah, that's a low bar.
Well, what I was going to say is, if it wasn't for Hawk, you'd probably be in the running. With that,
what company?
Well, want to tell you about Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew. This is not only the best barbecue spot in town. To me, it is one of the best restaurants in town. I was talking with somebody about this the other day. We were just chatting about barbecue, and he's like, he likes this particular place. And I said to him, okay, there are a lot of places that serve barbecue. You got your ribs and you have brisket and you have, pulled pork. I said, but do you have creative things on the menu at your place? Like the Heart Attack, 2 jalapeno cheddar biscuits topped with bacon, pulled pork, shredded cheese, 2 over easy eggs, and house-made sausage gravy. And he said to me, no, my place does not. I said, that's why you need to go there. That for that reason, and there's so many menu items just like that, and all their desserts are homemade as well. And I convinced him. I said, you should go check it out. And he goes, you know what? I'm going to. It's not that I'm their salesman. I'm not. But he realized that there are barbecue spots for sure. Okay. And then there are barbecue spots that become creative with the way they do things on the menu. With that, the 4th of July is coming up. And if you don't feel like, grilling out, you can order in from there. You can cater. They have something called the Big Kahuna Belly Buster, full slack of St. Louis ribs, whole chicken, half pound of pulled pork, half pound of beef brisket, 4 large sides, 6 pieces of cornbread, serves up to 5 to 7 people. Let Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew do your 4th of July upright. You can find them off of 36th and Pecos. Time now for What's Trending.
What's trending on Hot Takes with Goodman and Hurdle? Brought to you by Mile High Sports.
Okay, so Sean, you wrote a column yesterday with the headline, Nuggets don't have a GM, 8 days before the NBA draft. Now it's 7. And Josh Kroenke better have a cleanser, not tenser. With all due respect to your writer, I don't know what cleanser means, but I know it rhymes with tenser. With that, why not tenser?
And I'm glad you gave me a chance to talk about that, because I think you're misconstruing the headline a little bit. And I know you read the piece. It's no knock on Ben as a person, as a GM, as a potential guy. What it's a knock on is Josh and the timeline. The fact that if it is Ben Tenzer, and I'll throw this question back to you, and it would be Ben Tenzer all along, fine. And the column says that, fine. Why are we waiting?
Well,
if it's him, why are we waiting so long, Eric?
Well, why does it matter if we're waiting this long?
You
asked me a question. Let me finish.
All right.
Okay. If it's going to be Ben Tenzer anyway, and he is the guy working on the draft, which ironically, they don't have any draft picks, and then he's working on free agency, and there's not much that they can do anyway. Why does, and I'm dead serious when I say this, if he is going to be the guy, all you need is a press release and a press conference. Why does he need to appease your appetite for having an official name? Sean Payton has done a lot of things so far that the media has questioned. And in many cases, and I don't have everything off the top of my head, we've looked like fools. because he has waited to make decisions, but we want to know it right now. I'm guessing Tenzer is the guy. However, to your point, if he is not, then Josh does look foolish.
Right.
Then he does look foolish.
Yeah.
But if Tenzer's going to be the guy, at the end of the day, listen, the only thing we really have to cover right now is the Colorado Rockies. So we are thirsty for anything to make news. So yes, we would like another press conference to go to. I get it. So I will repeat it again. If Tenzer is going to be the guy, at the end of the day, he's working on all this stuff anyway. And let's face it, Josh is going to be heavily involved, like he is always heavily involved. But if he does hire a Bob Myers or somebody else, and we're this close to the draft and free agency, and we're barreling up to both quickly, then yes, Josh looks foolish. I agree with you in that sense.
Let me throw another 2 questions back at you. When was the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Ish Smith trade made?
It was made under Calvin Booth.
Yeah, but when was it made? What month?
You mean when they had draft picks to deal?
Fine, but when was it made? But draft picks weren't even in that trade.
Okay.
The draft picks weren't in that trade. When was it made?
It was made, I believe, during the draft.
It was made in June.
Yeah.
When was Alex Caruso traded from the Bulls to the Thunder?
It was made in June.
It was made in June.
Yep.
I'm with you that you don't have picks. You don't have a lot of wiggle room.
There's a difference. There's a difference. Right now, being in the first apron, it's a very different scenario than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say very different. It has the goalposts have moved, and the Nuggets will be, and Josh will be the first to tell you that. By the way,
hold on, let me finish this.
Hmm?
Who's to say, again, if Tenzer is going to be the official GM, who's to say that move can't happen?
No, there's nothing saying that it can't.
So I guess what's your point in bringing up the KCP and Caruso thing? That can still happen, specifically if Tenzer is going to be the GM. Now, if they're going to hire another GM, if Tenzer is not the choice, then to your point, you are right. You are limiting your ability to make a move like that. I agree. So I agree with half of what you're saying.
There you go. That's more than we usually agree, which we're pulling you there. The Pacers made a trade this week. Right. NBA front offices are open for business. The Nuggets made a trade during the finals in which they appeared. You can't blow off June is the point of the column. Then the headline may not say that. The lead says that. The nut graph says that. That's the point of the thesis they're in. And that's my only complaint with where we're at. That's not a knock on Ben. That's not a knock on Tenzer.
I know.
The headline's cute. I get that.
If Tenzer if he's not going to be named the GM, then okay, this is a podcast. Josh fucked up.
Yeah.
He just did. There's no other way to put it. But if he is hired, and it seems like that is going to happen, then whether he has the title interim or not, he is still doing all the work anyway. We just want something official. So if it comes out today.
Well, not just us, Eric, let me real quick. It's not just us. I've had folks affiliated with the organization and not naming names, obviously, even though this is a podcast, he puts out air quotes, who are openly frustrated with the lack of A, transparency from Kroenke the Nuggets, and B, simply asking the question. I know of agents who have asked, I don't know who to deal with. I don't know who to talk to. Now, to your point again.
Well, who are they talking to?
Right,
are they talking to Josh or are they talking to Tenzer?
Right. They don't know. But the answer is always, and I think this is what I wish I'd written and we may circle back to, is to the point you made earlier. The answer with the Nuggets is always Josh. Isn't it? Like what's the difference between the Nuggets and the Avs? Josh and Stan know what they don't know. Right? And you've been doing them way longer than I have. And we learn on the fly as we go. We learn from screwing up, in my case, is that they know that they don't know. Oh, that's fine. Let them, the Kroenkes look at the Avs the way that a lot of Power 4 athletic directors look at, say, women's basketball or more competitive women. They go, you know what? It's not a perfect analogy, mind you, but see where I'm going here. They go, you know what? I know what I don't know. That's for my that's for my SWA. That's for my senior women's administrator. I'm going to just leave that hands out. It's fine. In the case of like CU and CSU, for example, it is fine.
Sean, all you're saying is,
but
all
the
hockey
positions
are left to Sakic.
Yeah,
right. And they get involved in basketball.
They get involved in basketball, and I think Josh really is. They don't have you said on Twitter, the Nuggets don't have a president of basketball ops. Yeah, they do. It's Josh Kroenke. It's kind of always been Josh Kroenke. And that's the difference between the two. And so I think agents and those who are more experienced know the answer to that is the same that it's always been. And that is, you've got to talk to Josh, and anything big is going to run through Josh. I also wonder, and I'm curious what you think about this, if that, never mind the not paying for GMs and retaining the good GMs they've had, I wonder how much of a detriment that is on candidates who know that man is someone else in the room. I have to get this passed more than normal. You would have to get through an owner anyway, but I think it's more than ownership with Josh.
Okay. The Kroenkes are more than willing to spend on talent. Mm-hmm. They're willing to go over a salary cap, into the luxury tax, into the first apron, give yourself very little wiggle room as well in the NHL. Yeah. But historically, they do not pay GMs. Yeah. And for the most part, they really don't pay their coaches a lot either. And I think there's some arguments out there. Well, they hired Adelman because he probably didn't cost a lot. Personally, I think Adelman is the right choice. Now I'm going to flip a question around to you. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I'm not part of the Josh Kroenke Defense Fund here. But I will ask you, would you say that Masai Ujiri is at the very least a top 10 GM in basketball?
Absolutely.
Would you say Tim Conley is at the very least a top 10 GM in basketball?
Yep, no question.
Would you say that if it wasn't for Calvin Booth trading for KCP and getting Bruce Brown, the Nuggets, even with the best player in the world, do not win a championship?
Also true, but we don't know that he specifically made all those deals. But yes.
Okay. Well, yeah. Calvin Booth did make the deals. He was the GM.
He was, but yeah, that some of those were in place before he took it. But to your point, I see.
No, the Will Barton trade they had talked about. I knew that they were probably going to get rid of him, but it's who they got in return.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. If you're talking about things in place, let's talk about Tim Conley, who put in place a long-term deal for MPJ.
Right.
But I digress. Who hired all three of them? Josh Kroenke. Mm-hmm. I will give Josh Kroenke the benefit of the doubt all day when it comes to hiring GMs, just for the reasons of hiring Ujiri, hiring Conley, and hiring Calvin Booth. Good things came out of all three guys, even though it didn't end well, I get it, for Calvin Booth. However, all three guys contributed to the Nuggets winning a championship. The Carmelo Anthony deal netted the 7th overall pick, which happened to be Jamal Murray. Tim Conley, it was on his watch for Nikola Jokic, right? And then you have Calvin Booth bringing in KCP and Brown. Two of them are two of the best GMs in basketball. And no, neither guy got paid a lot of money. When something happens once, you could call it an accident. Mm-hmm. Well, I hired this GM. He did a great job. And then look at the other GMs he's hired. When it happens twice, well, maybe this guy knows something that maybe other people don't know. Okay. When it happens 3 times in a row, Josh Kroenke has as solid of a pattern, as good of a track record of hiring GMs as anyone in recent memory.
Precedent
in the
NBA. And that's a great counter. That's a fabulous counter. Precedent is on Josh's side, but the calendar and the clock, which continues to tick for the best player on the planet, isn't on his side.
But then again, if Tenzer is going to be his guy, to the agents, Deal with it, man. What do you
Yeah.
mean you don't know who to talk to? Tenzer is the guy. It has the word interim. That means you talk to him. I'm sure you have Josh Kroenke's number. Stop crying about it. You have two guys on speed dial you can call anytime. Stop your bitching and your moaning that you don't know who to call. You know who to call. You're telling me that because the word interim is on there, that suddenly you're not going to call him? Fine, then call Josh. Josh will tell you to call Ben. Again, for this particular hire for GM, right now, Ben Tenzer is doing all of the work. Now you can make this. This is a strong case. They don't have an assistant GM. That to me is a problem. So he doesn't have, so Tenzer doesn't have all of his resources available to him that he did last week. But then again, maybe they let go of this guy because they didn't like his vision. So maybe it's a good thing. You can make the case it's a bad thing that you have an empty chair, but maybe the guy filling the chair was spilling out ideas you didn't like anyway. Remember, they still have, in full disclosure, he's a friend of mine, they still have Jim Klibanoff in the organization. Klibs has been there forever. He's a great resource. It's not like they don't have other people that they can talk to. If Josh Kroenke decides to go with another GM and not Ben Tenzer, then yes, Josh messed up this late. But if it's going to be Ben Tenzer anyway, it really doesn't matter.
I admire your hope. I admire your courage. I wish I shared it.
No. You're not admiring my hope. You are looking at Josh Kroenke's resume. I'll flip it to you. Tell me where he doesn't have a history of hiring not good, but great GMs.
Oh, I would say good. I'm not going to say great.
I'm going to say Masai. If you're saying Masai Ujiri is top 10, that's
That's not great. That's good.
First of all, Masai Ujiri is better than top 10. Masai Ujiri is better than top 10. Tim Conley has done an excellent job of building the Timberwolves. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's fair.
By the way, the Timberwolves, who are the Nuggets' kryptonite.
Yes.
Okay? So Conley is terrific as a GM. Masai Ujiri is terrific as a GM. The only stinker of the bunch, you can make the case, is Calvin Booth. To me, I look at Calvin Booth like I look at John Elway's GM career. There is the Peyton Manning era and the post-Peyton Manning era. The Peyton Manning era, Elway was terrific. Post-Peyton Manning era, they went into the abyss. For Calvin Booth, it was the two big deals that he made. The Nuggets do not win a championship without a pair of D and threes, KCP and Bruce Brown. Then once both left, now they have gone into the abyss, what it seems like, with their bench, because they don't know if these guys are going to be decent role players, if they're going to be starters. And that's where you got the Michael Malone, Calvin Booth problem. And both of them were shown the door. Josh Kroenke, by the way, has certainly done a lot better than his fellow counterpart who played college basketball, the guy in Phoenix.
Oh, the future White Sox owner?
Right.
Flash family.
So my point is, under the stewardship of the Kroenkes, which includes in one calendar year an NHL championship, a NFL championship, an NBA championship, but besides the whole Comcast mess, I think the Kroenkes have put a lot of equity in the bank. But because we live in a microwave society, Sean, we want it now. And we refuse to look back at what happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago, specifically with the GM hires. But I'll repeat it again. If they go outside the organization for a GM this close to the draft, you are 100% spot on.
Yeah, and I respect your take on that. I think it's a great counter. But, Herman Marquez used to be an all-star too.
Yeah.
And he's not now.
But I don't understand your point.
Past performance, 2 in a row, 2.5 in a row, doesn't necessarily dictate future results. So we'll see.
But I don't understand what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is it doesn't mean the next GM is going to be a great GM just because the last two have been.
What's Herman Marquez? Well, Herman Marquez is a third guy in almost any rotation, even when he was flying high.
Right.
Right?
but he's not an all-star now.
I mean, how many times has he been an all-star?
Once.
Okay, there you go. Ubaldo Jimenez had like one great half season. He did. He had one great half season in which he put up a ridiculous record.
Right.
When you look at the GMs that Kroenke has hired, that dates back to the Mellow days, right? That dates back 15 years. That's not one or two good seasons for German Marquez. That dates back to roughly 2009, and it's 2025. That's a pretty good track record. That's not one good season, is it?
Oh, Marquez had more than one good season, but
no, I'm talking about the hiring of GMs.
I know, and that's not a perfect analogy on my part either. But just it's not impatient, and I'm not yelling necessarily from at middle of June impatience, which we have. Broncos. Right. Broncos camp stops. Everybody, we're in the great month of nothing here locally. But to your point, if it's not status quo, why not just announce it?
Sure.
You're not too busy. If you're Ben Tenzer in that front office, with or without Tommy Balchadis, you've got time to have that news conference and to put that vision forward, not just to us. It's not about us and the media. It's about the fans and being in front of them.
The fans.
It is about us. That's what the news conference is for. It's not for us.
It absolutely is. Why is it for the fans? So the fans feel better about themselves that they ripped off the term interim?
Some of that stuff could be an email and not a newser. But I think I see your point, but I think that the timing is curious, and let's leave it at that. It certainly is curious.
I'll put it to you this way. I am in the minority. You are in the super majority. I don't think there is a reasonable person out there that wouldn't look at this situation and say, Josh, what are you doing? You're right.
Yeah.
It is curious that an official announcement has not been made. I am totally on your side on that. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes when you have conversations like this, specifically on radio or on a podcast, you're playing devil's advocate. Mm-hmm. You believe what you're saying, but you're just trying to have a conversation to make it interesting.
Yeah.
In this particular case, I'm not even giving you pushback just to do it. The truth is, I have been here since 2004. Okay. I have seen the evolution of the Nuggets from the three-headed monster that was Workentine, Barrup, and Chapman. And then once they brought in Masai Ujiri, you felt like they finally had an adult in the room, right? And then Masai, and he told me many, many times, he wanted to be the GM of a major market team. Remember, he's from Africa, so anything could be major. Rome could be major market to him. Mm. Toronto's a major market team, and they weren't paying Masai a lot of money. And they offered Masai a lot of things in Toronto. Then here comes Tim Connelly, right? And he certainly had a resume to back him up. Mm-hmm. And while he wasn't the guy personally who found Nikola Jokic, he was certainly a part of it. He was part of the grooming of Nikola Jokic.
Right.
He spearheaded that as much as anything else. And then you bring in Calvin Booth, whose career here was like a piece of flash paper. So, and it was over. But when it was bright with a pair of D&3s, I remember talking to Bruce when we were doing radio. And I said, they desperately need D&3s. If they pick up a couple of those guys, they're in good shape. And I remember saying to Bruce on the radio show when I did it, I said, they are built to win a championship now. That's all they were missing. But then those guys needed to go because the Nuggets found themselves in an unfortunate situation that they were the first team to truly be punished because of the CBA.
Timing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, before everybody goes crazy about Oklahoma City going on a run of 5 championships in 6 years, those bills are going to be coming due.
Yeah, I think Boston would be a good warning to Thunders fans who because that's where were we a year ago? We were all, here they come. We love Derek White. We love the story. Well, it's going to be hard for everybody, and that's by design. And there's a reason that it was designed.
Right.
And the Nuggets were the first ones over that wall, and they were the first ones to take some wounds, and it's been bleeding ever since.
And you know who else is bleeding right now? Tim Conley's Minnesota Timberwolves. Naz Reid is going to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's a big loss for them. They're also going to probably lose Julius Randle. Or at least, if I read it correctly, he opted out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So how does Minnesota look with Gobert, Ant-Man, and Jaden McDaniels? And is Nikhil Walker coming back? I don't know if he is. They're going to get gutted too.
Yep.
To the Nuggets' credit, they have kept their core. I'd call Naz Reid part of their core. Walker coming off the bench, he's a key guy. Randall is part of their core. They're about to get blown up. To the Nuggets' credit, they're not getting blown up. They need help from those draft picks, which honestly, I think that, and I know we're going way over time here, you can make the case that Calvin Booth picked the wrong guys in Strother, Pickett.
Oh, yeah, right.
You can make that case all day, but he knew what was coming. The first apron and then potentially going to the second apron. He made deals during the championship season to pick up a bunch of draft picks. Whether they hit or not, at least he had the right idea. I mean, I can tell you right now, Sean, go back and look at the 2013 NFL draft. And if you decided to load up on picks in that draft, I can promise you, not only are you out of a job as an NFL GM, but you may never get one again, because that might be one of the worst drafts of all time.
Right. And you could argue for Calvin Booth's record, good or bad as a drafter. It's mixed, obviously. Christian Brown, there, obviously, and they haven't been able to replicate that since.
I'll ask you: Do you want Christian Brown back at about $30 million a year? That's going to be the price tag.
Yeah, I do, and not at $30 million, and I don't think you can square that circle. That's the problem. Is the market? And I was talking to a former NBA guard about this just last night in raising the very questions that we just did in this segment about the timing. And he said, yeah, the timing is screwy. He agreed with both of us. He said, yes, the timing is screwy. Yes, the Nuggets have a pretty good history with finding guys and finding GMs who then they struggle to keep because those GMs want to get paid for their work. And he says Christian Brown's contract is going to be a hard decision unless you have to time that around MPJ's extension or lack of an extension. And given who the president and owners are, they're going to show whether they're really MIZ or not. You know what I mean? The mafia colors are going to come out where MPJ is concerned. And no, I'm not Mizzou Mafia. God bless them. We both have many friends who are. And that's fine, but that's a really tricky needle and a thread right now with where you're at and with what's coming up with Jokic, that I certainly don't envy Josh and I don't envy Ben in that regard, and that they have the best player in the world and they're having a heck of a time trying to keep that house and to keep whatever analogy you want, trying to keep that truck moving in the way you want to go, for as expensive as all those wheels are getting, because it's harder than ever to keep all that stuff together. That is true. That is real. And to your point about Oklahoma City and the point I made about Boston, everyone is running, and the Timberwolves, everyone is running into that now. And it becomes a trial by error. And the Nuggets have went from the case study of how to build something, of the case study of how to lose something. And a lot of people are following that, and that's too bad. I think that makes this job harder. I think it's an interesting job for a coach and a hard job for a GM here. I think it really is.
That's going to do it for us. Hot Takes, Goodman and Hurdle. Sean, great job today. We'll see you again tomorrow if you are still willing to come on the show.
Yeah, I'm happy to be wrong.
Stop that. Make the best possible day you can.